Welcome back to this episode of the Women and Money Cafe. Now, going back a couple of years ago, when was it? It'll have been 2020. Remember when we weren't allowed to do anything? So, one of the things I used to do every morning was go out for a walk and listen to an audiobook. And one of the books I listened to, when you get a book that changes your life. I'm not going to be that dramatic. All right. It probably did change my life. One of the books I listened to as I was walking was Atomic Habits by James Clear. This book is absolutely phenomenal. So if you've not read it, guess what? I'm going to recommend it. And then the other week, Michelle and I were talking, and we were thinking about episode ideas that we could come up with. And Michelle suggested, why don't we atomic habit your money? So I'm joined by Michelle today.
Hello, nice to be here.
Right. And we're going to give you a quick fire round of how you can apply the principles of atomic habits to your money. So, Michelle, you had this great idea. What prompted it for you?
Again, I actually did also listen to the book during lockdown. I was doing the Couch to 5K, and I clearly was more interested into the Atomic Habits book than I was in actually running, to be fair. But it was something that I just listened to, thought, okay, this would be quite good. But actually, as you say, I think it does actually sit in your head and allows sort of grows as time goes by, because it really shows you how small actions can lead to big results, and how you can maybe use the things you really don't want to do, but adding them to things that you might like doing actually does make you do them. That makes sense.
It does. So, what made you think about this in connection with money then?
I think it's when we often think if we're going to change our money mindset, we have to make big sweeping changes. We have to do big things, but actually we don't. Those small things. So somebody who may avoid looking at their money will avoid looking at it for months. And then
Mm.
suddenly when they look at it, it's big and it's scary, and they don't actually want to deal with what's in front of them. So I have a family member who is a bit like that. He didn't want to look at them, and he didn't. And then when we actually sat down to look at it, he went, I don't want to. And he was scared. He didn't want to do it, and then felt very negative about everything.
Right.
But and it was actually after listening to the book, just go in and look at it every day. Go in and look at your bank account every day. Just go and see what's going out. And then it won't be such a big surprise as it will do if you leave it 2, 3 weeks in between, because you can see it happening. And if there's a problem, you can deal with it.
Mm.
The problem's happened and you haven't been back in, you can't. And I think that's what I learned with this person, was he then felt in control because he could see it happening and knew it was going to happen. Whereas when he didn't look, he didn't know it happened. And then he had all those sort of feelings and guilt that comes with that because he didn't know, should have known. What should he have done? So we kind of went, use the strategy that's in the book. But yeah, the small habits led him to feel in control of what he was doing.
Oh, that's really powerful. That's really powerful. And I know, like in the coaching world, when we're coming across like a really deeply held belief where it's been there for a long time and it's got a really big grip on you, that's not something that you're just going to be able to snap your fingers, say some clever words, and it disappears. It is about these tiny 1% changes. It's making these tiny 1% changes and doing that little 1% at a time. And I think the book makes the point, it's the cumulative effect of these little tiny changes and steps that we can take that can have such a huge impact over time. And I don't know about you, but I remember reading the book. So this is what it's like 3 years ago now that I listened to this. This is a test of my memory that I can actually remember that much of it. And it was this idea of 1%, or if you're trying to embed a new habit, did he say something like you only do it for 2 minutes a day?
Yes. Yeah. So that was something I remembered. It was, if you're going to read a book, don't try and read it all at once. Read 2 pages a day.
Yeah. So it's making the first step really small and really achievable. So I think you even gave the example is if your intention is to go to the gym, then just leave your gym stuff by the front door. That's step one. I thought, well, yeah, that's really achievable. I can do that. So yeah, the principle is these small tiny changes that we can make so that they aren't big and they aren't scary. And then there's more sophisticated methods involved with habit stacking, but we'll get into that as we go on. So let's just start then throwing out some ideas of how you could apply this idea of small changes to your money. So you gave us one there of checking the bank. Is there
Yeah,
another one that you can think of?
I would say when the post comes, don't just put it in a pile in the corner. Open a letter a day. We don't all get that many letters now. I think a lot of it is sort of email or whatever. So the same would apply to that. Open one, open a letter and read it that day. Then do whatever you need to do with the letter. Some people scan the letter, some people, you may not need the letter, you get rid of it, but it's not sat there. And I think that's particularly key when it comes to money or unexpected bills or things you don't want to see. You've done it. You've done one. That's good. We can do another one tomorrow.
I love that. I've been there where you've got the letters mounted up and you're just like, I can't be bothered. And there's probably nothing good in there.
I
So
can give you a
just
bit of a story that goes with that one. So
go
I
on.
sometimes lapse in my behavior and don't generally do I'll just put that letter on the side and I'll look at it later. So that happened to me. I had them in my office on the side. So when it's work, it's very strange, isn't it? Your mindset's different. I'll open everything, read everything for work. But this letter had been sat there and I opened it very quickly. I was on my way out, glanced it, went out, absolutely fine. 3 weeks later, when I'm driving to go and see a friend, the letter suddenly flashed in my head because clearly I'd read it in a rush, hadn't paid attention and left the time to actually view it properly. My car was no longer taxed. I was kind of driving without any tax on my car
Oh,
because for some reason the date flashed in my head when I was driving. And I suddenly thought, oh no, I'm not sure my car's taxed. Where that came from, obviously something subconscious. I was then driving and I had about another 15 minutes to go, hoping I wouldn't see a police car. I got to my, friend's house, sat down, went on to DVLA and I did it. But it was that thing. If I had actually sat down and opened the letter around the time I actually received it, I wouldn't have been in that position. And what I did was panic myself, worry myself. Yes, I could correct it, but I didn't need to be there.
mm.
I could have dealt with it and I could have not had that stress because it was a very stressful 20 minutes. Because, Julie, you know me, I don't like to do anything wrong. I don't like to break the rules. And that was a real stressful moment for me.
All right. I don't think the cops are on the way to you, Michelle. Don't worry. All right. I
That's
think
okay.
that's a really good tip then. So if you're one of those people where the envelopes are coming through, they're probably brown and they're just mounting up and you don't want to open them. So Michelle's top atomic hat tip is just take one a day, open one, act on it, and move on. I like that. And I think the way it's working is it's just while they're all sitting there in a pile, the dialogue in your head is look at all that stuff I haven't done. And even if it's the back of your mind, there's all that stuff I haven't done. Whereas you've decided that the goal is to open one a day and deal with it. Once you've opened it and done it, then the dialogue in your head is, I did the thing I had to do.
Yeah.
And so building that up by doing one a day, it's increasing the momentum of that sense of I'm doing what I need to do rather than look at all that stuff I've not done.
And you may then feel more comfortable to do two a day, if you get that because you're into that habit now. You've done it. You've opened one. You've dealt with it. Hang on, I've got another, half an hour. I'll have a look at another one and I'll deal with that one.
That's really good. I like that. And then the other thing you were saying about checking the bank, that's funny because I had a client with a similar problem that didn't like to look at their bank. They didn't like to look at it for another reason entirely, but it was about building up that tolerance. So, first of all, get the app on your phone. Step one. Okay, so if you're the person that doesn't like checking the bank, or when you go to a cash point and some of them insist on telling you how much is in your bank account when you try to take money out, and you're trying to look away so you don't see it, right? Get the app on your phone is step one. And then once you've got the app, is then, like Michelle said, just periodically getting into the habit of logging in and seeing it and seeing that it's not scary.
Yeah.
Nothing bad
And
happens.
you generally will be surprised on the upside with things like that because actually you've taken the fear away. The fear is the unknown, isn't it? And
Mm,
it's then no longer unknown.
mm.
it's there and it's done. And actually you've then also set the intention. Actually, you're going to do that the next day as well, because it didn't take very long and it wasn't very scary.
Yeah. All right. So that's really cool. So what else have you got for?
So I was kind of had a little bit of sort of read back through the book on some of it. And one of it was make the habit pleasurable,
Oh,
because we often don't like things, and that's the ones that we put off, isn't it? So if you can make it, you know, pleasurable, he said, well, in his words, it's reduce the friction. So as you
mm,
just said, so putting the app on your phone. But I think it becomes down to sort of lots of other things. So if you are not good at speaking about money with your partner, which we know, that can be a very big thing for couples, why don't you go out and have a meal and talk about it?
that's a good
So you're
one.
making it nicer. You're not sat at home going, right, we're going to talk about money and setting that scene, because that's, in my experience, generally doesn't end that well. But if you're out having a meal and you're talking about it in a more relaxed environment and you're both open and willing to talk, that's a good place to start, I think.
Yeah. And I'm thinking it's jogging my memory now of some of the things that I do that have just become second nature. But I do these things because I listen to the book. So I have little rituals in the morning and in the evening. I'm going to sound really sad now. So when I first wake up, there are certain things I'll do. So I'll probably meditate. Right now, I'm going onto the 3 apps that I've got on my phone that are helping me become a non-smoker.
Which
I'm
you're doing
taking off all
amazingly
this
well at.
3 weeks, folks. So I've got all these little things that I do first thing in the morning. And then when I get up, then I actually do 10 minutes of yoga. And so this is the habit stacking. So when you think of a new routine that you want to introduce, stack it on top of the things that you already do.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I've got at the weekend is Owen and I have a ritual at the weekend where we get a Costa. Owen absolutely loves Costa, and I'm quite a fan myself. So, but Saturday mornings, that's when I sit down and do my budget.
Okay.
So I get peace and quiet. So that's making it pleasurable for me. Nobody's allowed to talk to me while I'm doing this. And then the reward, because once I've got it done, only then can we go and get a Costa. So, it's like I could sit and do the budget, or I could just sit here and watch Netflix. It's like, well, if you do want to watch Netflix, then you have to do the budget first of all, then you get the Netflix. So it's whatever you're going to do instead of the thing that you should be doing, you can have that as a reward for doing the thing. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
No, I really like that. And I think, yeah, that's his sort of, isn't it? Making sure you get satisfaction out of what you're doing because you've got the reward that's coming. And who doesn't like a reward? And I can definitely go with the Costa, because that's generally my weekend routine, if I'm honest with you. There was one thing from the book, and this isn't particularly money related, but this really made me laugh because you just mentioned Netflix. So within the book, he talks about an experiment where there is a sort of computer programmer who would like to go to the gym more and he'd like to lose weight, but he also really likes sitting on the sofa and watching Netflix, which is the problem. So he got himself an exercise bike and wrote some code, and it was linked to his laptop, and Netflix would only run if he was cycling at a certain speed. And so he lost weight and got fit because he cycled, had to keep the speed up in order to carry on watching the program on Netflix.
Oh, I love that. Oh God, if you could do that for my computer, the weight I would lose, that'd be amazing.
And I was thinking the same you think, because you've got everything there, haven't you? You've got the intentional, you're getting on the bike to do it, you're going through the action, and then you get the reward of watching the program you want to at the end. And he's also achieved sort of the losing weight. So
It's a win-win, that, isn't it?
definitely.
I think probably one of my biggest sort of little habit wins when it comes to money is I don't know how long ago this will be now. It's maybe 4 or 5 years ago. The Chip app. So Chip is an app. It's a bit like Plum,
Okay.
where the little algorithm goes and sneaks money out of your bank account. So I got Chip because I've never been big into saving. I got Chip and I thought, I'll give this a go because I like apps. I'm not big on saving, but I like an app. And so Chip would go and sneak out £5 out of my account. And then I built up that Chip would sneak £12 out of my account. And it's just starting with these small amounts. So I thought, wants to take £5, £6 out of my account. I can handle that. Off you go, jog on. And off it went. And I just started to get more bold with it because I thought, oh, hang on, I can do this. And I started, because you could set the levels on how aggressive you wanted Chip to go at your money. So I just started at the lowest levels, a bit like the cycling, where it's on like number one.
Yeah.
And then as I got more confident, more comfortable with it, I've dialed it right up to 10. Go on, go at it. And I think that was really helpful for me. And it's built really good habits for me with saving now, that I don't need an algorithm to go and sneak money out my bank account. I can do that myself now, like a grown up.
Well, but that's great, isn't it? Because it's the automation of it happening first that it builds up your tolerance level.
Mm,
Yeah, and I had something similar here, and actually it's something that I do. So if you've got a longer term goal, something you're saving for, and that amount of money might seem absolutely, you know, ridiculous to you, you think, I can never ever achieve that level of money. So what's the point in me even trying? I'll just not do it. I won't do it. I won't save. I can't do it. But actually, by having savings that go each week, each month, you get the instant satisfaction of seeing that balance build each week. So you get a little bit of a dopamine hit when that money goes in and you go, oh, look, it's gone up, it's gone up. But actually, if you set that automation to meet your goal, you'll also meet your goal at the end, and then you have the massive payoff at the end.
mm,
But it is the small actions, isn't it? So allowing those small bits to flow through and just watching the balance build and thinking, that's my holiday.
yeah.
Look at that. That's my holiday. And you don't need to tell anyone about it. You can just be doing it. And then at the end go, look what I've got.
Yeah. I think that's probably the other like small change that you can make to your money that will make a huge difference. So I think I've mentioned this before, that I came to retirement planning quite late in life personally. I've been doing it for 25 years for everybody else, just never bothered with my own.
Isn't that always
And
the way?
so I think I just started putting a monthly amount into my pension. And then because I like a spreadsheet, I played around with the spreadsheet and found out that if I increase my contribution to my pension by 10% each year, holy cow, do you want to see what happens to my pension fund? And the thing is, it'll happen to yours as well. So if you're investing or you're putting money into your pension, the habit I would say to you is each year, or maybe twice a year, just go and increase it a little bit. So it might be, if you're putting £200 in, go make it 205, 210, 215. And just get into that habit of always making sure that you increase it a little bit every year, because that turbocharges your money.
I love that one. And I think that's really key to showing. And I think you can find some like free calculators and things, can't you, on Google, which will show you that if you invest this much or you do this, how much it would end up being. And I've had those conversations with my daughters when I'm trying to show them the effect of what it is. And they're like, wow. And you're like, yes, but you have to do that bit first.
I tell you what I'll do then. I'll put a link in the show notes to my super sexy spreadsheet. Right,
Definitely.
it doesn't look like a spreadsheet. Okay, it's user friendly. Just to put this into context for you for what it can do. So bear in mind, 48 now. Didn't take my pension seriously until recently. When I say recently, maybe about 3 or 4 years. And by doing the 10% rule, so I put mine up by 10% each year, I am on track to have over £1 million in my pension. Right. I did not have a lot to start with. Okay. So it's just the 10% thing that is getting me there. So super, super powerful habit.
And it really, really shows how those habits can make such a big change in the end, because what choices will that give you later?
Loads. I think it was you saying, if you think about the big number, you're like, oh, what's the point in trying? I'll never get there. Well, it was never my aim to have £1 million pension fund. And if the truth be told, I probably don't need that. But if I'd sat here and thought, right, how will I get £1 million pension fund? And I'm like, I don't bother. That's not happening. But
And it
just
is
starting
things
small. Yeah.
as we do for clients all the time, and it's an automatic thing, but we don't do it for ourselves because that's what most people do in any industry. You don't actually take your own advice all the time. But it's so easy to just go and have a look and see what it can do.
So I'll put a link to the where you can get hold of my spreadsheet and play around with the figures, because it is going to blow your socks off. All right. What other little habits have we got? So far we have covered get the banking app,
Yep.
Set yourself a goal of how many times you're going to check your banking app in a week. If you've got a pile of letters, 1 letter a day. If you want to start saving, start small and build up. Increase your pension or your savings by 10% each year if you can, or 5%. You pick the number. That was just mine. What else? Have I missed any so far?
I think that another one, which I think a lot of us are probably doing and not really realizing at the moment because of the way costs are, go through what comes out of your bank account and have a look at what you're paying to who. And are you still using it? Do you still need it? Sometimes people don't want to do that because they don't want to see the numbers. They don't want to see what's coming out. And again, it's that fear factor. But you don't have to do them all at once. Just tackle one at a time.
Yeah.
What do I need that package, which gives me my phone, my broadband, a mobile, and everything in together? Or could I actually get it cheaper? But just do one at a time, because if you will get really overwhelmed if you try and do more. And maybe you can add that to when you look at your bank account. So you're going in, you're having a look, you're happy with it, right? One of those payments, I'll go away and play with that. And that doesn't have to be every day. You could do one a week.
All right. So you're sounds like you're habit stacking here, Michelle. So this is where we're going to put one habit on top of the other. So you've got the hang of going into your banking app periodically to check what's going on. Michelle's suggesting now then that you just do a quick audit of what you're spending your money on. Pick one and go away and check whether you still really need that or whether you can get it better elsewhere, cheaper.
Yeah.
I love that. So we're giving you the idea of this habit stacking where you've got a routine already going and you sneak another little habit inside there. And the other thing we've touched on is making it pleasurable. So Michelle's talking about going out for dinner if you need to talk about money. Me, I'm liking the peace and quiet to do my budget and my reward afterwards of getting a Costa.
There are benefits to both, I have to say. But yeah, I just think, a lot of it is about also making, one of the big things in the book is making the cues for that habit visible. So I think you said leaving the gym, your gym kit out by the door or whatever. But what can we do with our money? So if we're not thinking about doing those things, what can we leave out to prompt us? What can remind us to do them?
Oh, well, the envelopes is fairly obvious because it's that big pile in the corner we've been ignoring.
We use for, going into your banking app, what could we use as our prompt?
Well, I think the first thing I would suggest you do, especially if you're me, because you've got thousands of apps on your phone, is make sure that the banking app is on the home screen.
Yeah.
I think that's the most obvious one. The other thing that you could do is you could set reminders on your phone so a notification will flash up telling you, oh, you're meant to check your banking app now.
I'll be honest with that one. I have so many reminders. I now ignore my reminders.
Yeah, me too.
Because they pop up and I think and then one important one pops up in between the regular ones. I kind of miss it. So if you don't use it so much, I think that works really, really well.
Yeah.
If you're maybe like Julie and I, who obviously have lots of reminders, it's just whether you've got some other system you can use on your phone that would help you. So my husband, for example, it's not for checking his bank, but it's actually sounds awful, going to bed because he gets up at 4 a.m. So he has this reminder to go to bed because sometimes he's like, well, I don't want to go to bed yet. So actually at that time, his phone plays a little tune. Now, for the first couple of weeks, we didn't actually have a clue what that tune was because we just all kept looking at each other and he would just smile and then he'd just say, I'm off to bed. But now we know what that means. So it wasn't a message he had to read, it was a tune.
Well, that's really interesting.
And then we all now know he's off to bed now.
I know that's really cool. And then so you were saying like reminder. So when I was going full on habit forming, one of the other things in the book it says is like for some reason we get pleasure from ticking things off. So if you're trying to instill a new habit and you're sort of embedding it, it's really satisfying to be able to tick off that you did this. So I got another app, oddly enough, called Habit. And if you go into my habit app, it lists all of my habits. And so one of my habits was in the evening when I'm going to bed, there's all the habits would go into bed. So there's meditation, everything else. And the other habit is then to go into the habit app and tick off all the habits that I've sort of ingrained today. So that's deeply satisfying. But it's also a little prompt to maybe go, oh shit, I didn't do my gratitude journal today. I can go and get that done.
you're making me smile now because you know that I'm a bit of a technophobe and clearly have an issue with apps. So I actually, for a long time, probably triggered by this book to an extent, I had a book and I drew myself a chart with my tick boxes.
Yeah.
So that ticked my box because I'm clearly not an app, I can't, I don't know what it is. I'm just a technophobe. So I just stay away from them. But I could spend the time and I drew it out and I had this very lovely, colourful page, but I loved going in and ticking them off.
It's something deeply satisfying about it. And it's like, so even if so whether you've got a chart that's stuck to the fridge or you've got an app on your phone like me, it's the satisfaction of ticking it off. And like if I go in and I see I haven't done something, well, I want to be able to tick it off. So I have to go and do it now because I can't have it not ticked.
See, I progressed to colouring the boxes in with coloured pencils. So I had to have my rainbow. And if I missed one, I didn't have my rainbow. So I had to actually go and do it to get my rainbow.
So essentially what we're doing here is we're hacking our brains, but for good. Because there's all these subconscious hacks going on in our brain all the time that aren't necessarily working for us. So this is us taking control of the brain and making it work for us by forming these new habits. All right. So what else have we got that we could share from the book that would be helpful?
Just having a look through, and I think also there we also can have some bad habits.
Oh, hell yeah.
In looking at the in reverse, how can we increase the friction to those bad habits? How can we make it harder? So if we're spending time, I don't know, on social media when actually we should be looking at our bank or dealing with a letter or doing something important, as you just said, move that app as far away from your home screen as possible and into a little file in a box with when the app goes in another box and it's sort of not visible because you're not going to instantly see it when it comes up. So your brain isn't going to go, oh, look at that. It's going to go, oh, I'll look at my banking app because that's what's come up first. So it's increasing the friction between things that we all go back to doing. We try and make it difficult, like sitting on the sofa watching Netflix and doing things like that. Can you make it more difficult? And one of the
Oh,
examples he gives is take the batteries out of the remote, and you've got to go and get them every time.
see, that just
That
strikes me as cruel and unusual.
it would be.
All right, so I tell you something that I did with my money that created friction. So it started off as an unintended experiment when somebody had got hold of my card somehow and decided I was going to try and spend hundreds of pounds at Sky Bet. Now, I'm not a betting person, it might surprise you to learn. So obviously, my card got cancelled and I had to wait for a new one to arrive. So there goes my Amazon habit.
Yeah.
Can't spend any money at Amazon. And it just meant I had to really think if I want something, I had to really think, do I really want this because of the hassle of using another bank card or another bank account? And what I learned from that then is that the way I've got my money organized is very little sits in my current account now. Because I went through a while where I liked having quite a bit there and it made me twitchy. But I realized that makes it easy for me to spend. So just moving it into the spaces, it's just adding a couple of extra taps on my phone to put the money into the account so I can spend it. And by that time, I've attention deficit disorder. I'm like, I've moved on.
I do exactly the same as you. So I move money out into spaces and need the minimum in my current account and only move it when I need to. So I have to really think about it because you say I've got to go in and I've got to move it between places. And if I really don't want to do that, then I won't spend it. And well, my bank card also ran out this week. So like every 3 years, your bank card runs out, and it's actually set on everything you can imagine on your phone. So your bank card's linked to your Apple Pay, your Amazon account, anything else you use. And it ran out at the end of February. So I actually got a text from the bank at 10 p.m. last night to say this card will no longer work. I had the new card, which was fine. And I thought I had a bit of a panic, I have to say, because I was like, what am I going to do? Because everything's linked to that card. But I went in and I did change Amazon because I use it for work and things as well. But there were others where I actually went in, took the old card off, but didn't put the new one on.
Yeah, I would say that as if you are having to be really careful with money right now, or you're an impulse spender, and a lot of it's going on in your phone. Take the card off the phone. It's going to slow you down.
And something really interesting, which I didn't know, was on Apple Pay. Once you've linked the card to Apple Pay, when the bank issues your new card, it gets added automatically.
No, does it?
Yes, because I went in to add it and it was already there.
Oh,
So my both cards had shown yesterday and this morning, only one now shows. So it is automatic because it's linked to your account. So that's something for everyone to be mindful of. That if you
right.
get a new bank card, one, it's linked automatically. But two, if you don't want it on there, you've got to go on and take it off.
All right. Now, I think that's a really good tip there. Just that where can you add friction to stop the bad habits? Absolutely. All right. What else have you got for us, Michelle? We've covered quite a lot of ground.
I think we have, and I think we've covered most of the key, sort of the key learnings from the book. I think it's just building on them and how can we build that into our everyday lives. And we've covered, a fair amount of them.
Hmm.
Thinking about your own life, I think, and thinking what are your particular concerns about what you may or may not do, and actually, what could you do? What habit could you put in place to make that better?
Yeah, and what aspirations you've got as well. And I think so. The name was Atomic Habits, and that's because it's teeny tiny. So it's like, what teeny tiny changes can we make? We're not trying to build £1 million pension funds today. We're just trying to save or invest £1 today, just £1. And it's just making that one tiny change. What can we do today that is going to take us 2 minutes that's going to improve your money? Yeah. So I think the key lessons then were it's about, like you said, making it pleasurable. Yeah,
Yeah.
making it small and achievable. So, like, you're like, yeah, I can do that. So, and this idea of stacking your habits. So, when you've got habits in place already, it's like, and you've got a new one you want, can you sneak that into some of your existing habits so that it becomes part of the ritual? And just that, don't underestimate how deeply satisfying it is measuring and ticking off your habits. It is.
We've both shown that in our own way about how excited we were for ticking them off.
It's just a good feeling ticking things off.
And I think you reduce your fear day by day. You
Well, I
know,
think you'll know this as much as I do from coaching that because every time you're ticking that off, what you're doing is you're building a body of evidence that says, I can do this. So you've got the voice in your head with all the letters say, I can't do that. Look at all that stuff I haven't done. I can't do that. But once you do one and you've ticked it off, and then the next day it's providing proof to your brain that actually, no, you can do this. You are doing this. And that's a really different story to have running in your head. A much nicer one, I suspect.
are much nicer and really just shows the power of our minds, doesn't it?
It does. Aha. Okay, right. Now, before we end, I must confess, I've got to hold my hand up. I had a similar experience to you, Michelle. I've got a car that I haven't sold yet, and I could have sworn that I sold it, that it was declared off road. And all the letters that I hadn't got round to eventually had like a mammoth morning and worked my way through them. There was one in there. I hadn't sold it. And I
Mm.
had £100 fine. I'm like, so annoyed with myself.
You just get so frustrated, don't you? I think that's what I did when I was in the car driving. Why? So if we'd all had that habit, if you and I both had the habit of opening a letter a day, we probably could have avoided the stress that came from.
Yeah, go and ask me how many letters there are in my house that aren't open now.
Go on then.
None.
I've got two.
All right, that's there's nothing. So we are living proof that you can get on top of the envelopes. All right. So is there anything else you want to sort of share with the listeners before we wrap this one up?
I don't think there is. I think we've covered, so many different habits, different things that you can do, but also if you have got a moment or if you're out having for a walk, read the book or listen to the book because it's really relatable. It's really easy to listen to. And I think you and I are sort of living proof of how powerful it actually can be.
Oh yeah, the book is amazing. It is. All right. I think then just before we end, I want to do the thing that we got into the habit of doing, Michelle, because we've had another lovely review left for us. So Lizzie, I think it's Dr. Lizzie actually, has left us a lovely review. And she was saying, I've learned so much from this podcast in the short time I've been listening. And in fact, just yesterday, recommended it to a friend, catching up on all the episodes since discovering it a few weeks ago. A must listen for every woman who wants to learn about money. So, Lizzie, thank you very much for your review. And if, having listened to Lizzie's review, you feel inspired to go and leave us a review, know that we will be eternally grateful, and we might just give you a shout out as well.
Definitely. It's really nice to know that we're actually making a difference.
It is. So also then we'd love to hear if you go and implement one of these 1% small teeny tiny atomic changes. If you want to let us know, then that would be great. And we'll be cheering you on as well. But for now, until next time, take care of yourself.